Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. And now, here's Jeff Crilley.
Good Saturday morning, everybody. DFW, a beautiful day. It's a little drizzly, but that's kind of welcome. We've had some 100-degree weather in the last month or so, and it's nice to have a little cool off. Today's show is kind of a theme show. It's about reinventing yourself, and I think we're going to start off with divorce. I mean, it is a fact of life these days. It seems that we've heard the statistic that half of all marriages end in divorce. You hope and you pray that when you go down that aisle that doesn't happen, but for many, it does, and it's emotionally and financially devastating. Custody battles, fights over property, you name it. Divorcing couples will fight over it. So how do you keep your marriage breakup from becoming a scene from War of the Roses? You remember that 1989 film starring Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas? I mean, it can get kind of nasty out there. My guests right now, Derek Bragg and David Hoffmann. They're with the law firm Quilling, Selander. And it's an acronym. The longer name, go ahead, give it to me, guys.
Sure. The longer name is Quilling, Selander, Lownds, Winslett, and Moser.
But if they want to just remember Quilling Selander, they can Google it, right?
That's right. They can Google Quilling Selander or just QSLWM, and it'll come up.
Okay, and my daughter Sarah here is on the mic as well.
Thanks
Say
for
hi.
having me.
Absolutely.
Good morning.
And the reason I brought Sarah in on this is both Sarah and I have gone through divorce, and so we know personally the toll that it can take on you. So let's just kind of start with some open-ended questions, guys. Let's talk about kind of the state of divorce in 2015. Is it nastier than it was in previous years? Are we becoming less civil either?
Well, I don't necessarily think that it's nastier. There are cases out there that do get pretty nasty. But one of the things that has actually developed in Texas over the years is the collaborative law movement, which is actually trying to keep divorce from getting nasty. It's trying to get people into a mechanism that allows them to take control of the divorce process and take control of how they want their lives shaped once it is complete and what they want their custody to look like once it's done and what they want their property to look like. And it's a movement that started a few years ago, which is actually helping to prevent the nasty divorces, but they're still out there. I mean, you still have the World War III divorces as well.
Right. Well, so Derek, let's bring you in on this. How do you keep a divorce from spiraling out of control? I know no couple really, I believe, goes in thinking, okay, that we're going to really, destroy this other person, or hopefully they don't, because often kids are involved. How do you keep it from spiraling out of control?
Well, I think what you want to do is be truthful to your client and let them know what the possibilities are if they want to go down that road. They really need to know what the pros and cons are, and that if they're wanting to go after their spouse, there's a real possibility the spouse may come after them as well. So they really need to, you want to walk through that process with them, make sure they understand what's potentially going to happen so that they can make that ultimate decision and have enough information to make an educated decision as to whether or not they want to do World War II or III.
And obviously, when kids are involved, it gets even more emotional. Sarah, you have little Caleb.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the collaborative is such a great thing. I didn't know about it when I was going through my process, but I think that really would have really saved a lot of time and money. Can you explain to our listeners a little bit more about the collaborative, and is that something that you offer within your practice?
We do have attorneys at our firm that practice collaborative law. And what the collaborative process entails is both parties have to agree to go through the collaborative process. And you sign a contract at the very beginning of the process that puts you into the collaborative law process, basically. And what that agreement says is that you're not going to go to court, that you're going to have sessions with your attorneys there, and you're going to call in experts, and they can be psychologists, psychiatrists, financial planners, all sorts of experts to help you and your spouse go through the divorce process and get an amicable separation that both of you can live with. And one of the benefits in some of the studies that have been done to the collaborative process is that most people who go through that process don't end up back in court later on because they come into a dispute about something that has happened in their final decree of divorce. The one downside to the collaborative law process is if there is a dispute, if somebody does get crossways with the other party, you can always get out of the collaborative process and go to court. But if you do, you have to fire your collaborative attorneys and hire new attorneys to do it. And so it can get expensive to do that. So it's a detractor, but it's also an attractor to keeping people in the process because there's this additional financial incentive to keep working the process.
I know one of the things that many people are scared about is that, oh my goodness, I'll get a lawyer and the lawyer just wants to rack up the legal bills, and so they're going to continually stir stuff up. Talk about that. Does that happen, and does that happen at your firm?
It does not happen in our firm. We understand that we're working with individuals, that when we're not working with a Fortune 500 company that just writes and pays their bills monthly and doesn't even look at the invoices. We are very open and honest with our clients regarding the billing process. We understand that any big decisions that may be expensive, we walk it through with our clients and make sure they understand why we want to do something and what the benefits will be, and then they ultimately make that decision whether or not they want to go down that road or not. So I don't know if it happens, but it definitely doesn't happen at our firm, and we're very conscious of our billing practices because we understand that, one, the divorce process is not a fun process, and to throw financial burden on top of that would not be beneficial to anybody. So we're very conscious of that.
David, talk about kids in divorce. Even if you don't go to court and have a child on the witness stand, it still does take a toll out of the children.
Yeah, divorce always has a huge impact on kids, and they, when I practice, it's even though the kids are not necessarily my client, what you're always trying to do in the bottom line in family law in Texas, when children are involved, the court looks at what's in their best interest. They're trying to accomplish the custody agreement and the custody arrangement that's going to be best for the kids. And oftentimes the children get kind of left behind by the parents because the parents are so focused on fighting with their spouse that they forget about the impact it has on their kids. Sometimes you hear about parents who are questioning their kids about what's happening at dad's house or what's happening at mom's house. They put kids in the middle. Some parents, everybody knows or has heard one way or the other of the statute under the Texas Family Code that allows a 12-year-old to have a say in who they're going to live with. I think that that's horrible. You should never put a 12-year-old in that position. But parents do it invariably. They try and bribe their child, or they try and talk to their child into talking to the judge, and it's just a horrible decision. And what I try and do in my practice is insulate the kids as much as possible. And it's what the judges in Dallas County try and do, in Collin County try and do, in Denton County, and it's what the Texas Family Code tries to do. It tries to insulate the children from the hardships of divorce because it's not their problem. It's their parents' problem.
Right. Sarah?
What advice do you have for families going through that to, best protect the kids and the emotions, high emotions that are going through that time?
So it's number one, I would definitely recommend that the parents get into counseling and speak with a professional on how best to introduce the subject of divorce to their children, how best to prepare their children for what's going to happen and what their life is going to look like in the future before they ever even open their mouth about the changed circumstances to their children, because they don't understand themselves what their life is going to look like when it's done. So they don't understand how to explain it to their children. And when their emotions are running high, they're liable to say something that they're going to regret. And so, my first advice would be for the parents themselves to seek out professional counseling to figure out how to break the news to the kids. Second, no matter what your spouse has done to you or how you feel about your spouse, in front of your kids, they are perfect. Always.
Wow. I just got goosebumps because I got to tell you, for those of you who aren't catching this on YouTube, because we posted on YouTube, I saw in David's eyes just now some real emotion. So you're talking about guys who get it, and this process is never easy, But if you are going to go through a divorce, you need somebody in your corner who really cares, and you're not a file or a number on a piece of paper. Derek Bragg and David Hoffmann from the law firm of Quilling, Selander. Derek, let's bring you back into the conversation. When I got divorced, and I'm just going to put my cards on the table, I thought to myself, okay, there's nothing to fight about. Let's just get one attorney to do the divorce, just make it legal. Why is that a bad idea?
Well, one attorney can't represent both parties in Texas. That's a clear conflict of interest. But two, you want somebody to, unless you're a family law attorney yourself going through a divorce, and I still wouldn't advise you to represent yourself in that process, but you want somebody in your corner to let you know what the possibilities are and how to get there. So if it's all agreed to, great, that's good. But you want an attorney to finalize that final decree of divorce, review it, make sure everything's accurate, and it matches what the agreement of the parties are. And I always tell clients, and a lot of our practice is fixing pro se divorces, where people went down to the courthouse, printed off a file or a form online, and got divorced, and didn't really realize what they were doing. And then they hire us to fix it. And that's always a little bit more expensive. So if you're going to do it right the first time. Have somebody in your corner, make sure you understand what the possibilities are and what the outcome may or may not be. And there's a lot of issues that are in divorce that pop up that the average person may not think of. Tax issues, the actual conservatorship terms rarely aren't known to the layperson. So you probably need somebody to talk you through exactly what these possession schedules will be, what the rights and duties are to the children, and that sort of thing. So I would always advise somebody to at least seek counsel and talk to an attorney. And if you decide after that not to hire one, that's fine, but at least you have some information from an attorney that knows what they're doing.
Let's talk a little bit about you guys. How did you get in starting your practice?
I actually started doing civil litigation at Quilling, Selander, and David and I were hanging out after work one day, and I said I wanted to, help some people and get a little bit more experience in the litigation side. And David allowed me to work on a couple of his cases, and that's how I ended up here. I'm doing primarily family law right now, and David and I work very closely together on a daily basis. So I kind of didn't expect to be here, but I'm extremely proud and happy that I fell into this line of practice because it's very rewarding.
David?
So when I went to law school with the idea I was going to be a mergers and acquisitions corporate lawyer and make millions and millions of dollars. So I didn't take a single family law class in law school. The only family law that I knew when I started practicing family law is what I had to study to pass the bar. When I first came out of law school, I did insurance defense and commercial litigation cases, and the firm that I worked for no longer exists. Everybody went their separate way. I knew a bunch of the people at Quilling. They offered me a job. They had just hired a partner and started their family law section at Quilling. I was the second attorney in the family law section hired at Quilling. That was about 8.5 years ago. I went in and just hit the ground running because I needed an associate to support that partner. I learned family law, and I learned that I was good at it, that I enjoyed the practice. I enjoyed helping people. It's one of the few areas of the law where you actually see an impact in people's lives, and that was very powerful to me. And so, I'm now board certified, been doing it for 8.5 years, shareholder at the firm, and I love it.
It sounds rewarding, even though you're dealing with a lot of emotions. Let's talk about that. I mean, it seems like after a while, the emotions of the client would take a toll on you personally. How do you keep your work life and your personal life from bleeding over?
So it's difficult because you've always got the cases where there are some very touchy subjects, and like I said before, whenever kids are involved, it does get personal. You get an attachment to your client. You want to do well for them. You want to do well for their children. You want things to be good, and so it's stressful and it is difficult. But for me, when I walk home and open up the door and my 4-year-old and 2-year-old run to me,
That's great.
I can put the problems aside because now I'm home.
And for some who don't have children and they have like 4-legged children, one of the things that we were talking about off the air is that pet custody has actually become a real thing where they will present evidence. Am I wrong that this home would be better than this home for this dog?
As people surely know, people know people who consider their pets their children, and in a divorce case, that is an issue that can come up, and the courts don't look at the pet as a child. They look at it as property, as callous as that may sound. That's how the court looks at it. But the court will see, if you put on evidence as to who the better caretaker will be and that sort of thing, the court can make a decision based on that. So they do come up. Pet custody battles do come up. They're not extremely common, but they are interesting.
Give us the website.
So it's www.qslwm.com, and it's actually currently under renovation. You'll still go to a website, but it's our old one. But hopefully within a month or two, there'll be a new one up that's even more user-friendly.
Awesome. Well, this was a great segment. Thank you guys for coming in on a Saturday. When we come back, if you're finding your life stale, if you're finding your life just in a rut, there is a man who's going to be in here next who has reinvented himself. He's going to share the secrets to living your dreams next on The Jeff Crilley Show.